Hello, my name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to my channel. Almost said just one truth. Habits. Okay, what I'm going to start in this video is detailing the process, the steps that we have to take for self-healing. And I'm going to start by saying I haven't invented anything new here or discovered anything new. This dovetails right in with Joseph Campbell's work in the monomyth. He's the one that spotted this. And what he spotted, if you're not familiar with the monomyth, is incredible similarities that happen in mythologies, religions, spiritual teachings, things from antiquity, a lot of work from antiquity. He identified some patterns in there. And the patterns are not always easy to see, but I'll describe them. It would be like maybe in one story in the beginning, it might have somebody crossing a narrow bridge that falls behind them. Your past is cut off from behind you. In another story, it might be like Jason and the Argonauts leaving their past behind, sailing through the clashing rocks. They're sailing through a narrow corridor. However, once they sail through, it's open up. They can now access in and out. In the Bible, the Jews, when they were escaping their past, they went through the Red Sea, or the Dead Sea, excuse me. They parted the sea, then went through, and it closed behind them. All of these are emerging, these patterns. Some of them are not quite as detailed. Some are very short. Jesus might have something like, while many are standing outside the narrow gate, only, the single or the elect, depending on the source you're coming from, single and elect will enter through the narrow gate. There's this idea that you have to pass through somewhere. Caves, crossing rivers, entering into tombs, renting curtains between one place and another to get from the holy to the Holy of Holies. All of these sound radically different, but if you step back and look at them, they're all hinting towards this idea of going through a narrow passage into another space. And that's the pattern that continues on that he's spotting. And he's seeing it from a great big overview, and he's pulling it all together. And he was incredibly instrumental in what I found. The reason I found a slightly different perspective than he did is because I came from kind of a different world than Joseph Campbell did, and I had to come through the hero's journey. I had to actually take the steps for self-healing. So I discovered a layer of something in there that he didn't have to find because it wasn't his experience. And that's what this very specifically is. So first, let's cover a little bit of what actually Joseph Campbell identified, and I'm going to modify that a little bit. I don't want to cover the hero's journey. This is something a little more specific. Let me just connect the two together, then we'll take it from there. I'm going to start by pulling up this chart here, the stages of the hero's journey archetype. This is something that I just pulled from the web, and it's not exactly Joseph Campbell's verbiage here, but it covers exactly what we need to have. And you'll see on the left-hand column, there's phases. You have an awakening phase, a transformation phase, and then an inspiring phase. On the right-hand side, there's story archetypes. Those are just typical types of components that show up in the story. You see the ordinary world, call to adventure, refusal of the call, meeting of the mentor. Those are parts that are common in the stories. And then I'm not going to go into it much more than that because I have a little bit different take on this. This is being identified as a scholar would look at it from outside, and I'm going to identify it as a person who would take the path would identify it. Crossing the threshold we have there, embarking on the quest, friend, enemies emerge, challenge, preparation, enter the challenge. You see all of these things happening that you're like, well, okay, that all sounds fun. But the reality of it is that this turns inward and it becomes component parts of who and what we are. I have gone further to identify these parts as this. First of all, as far as the calling, if you do this, there is not a calling from outside. There's nothing supernatural here. I will tell you who the calling comes down to is people that generally have just, there's something different about them. They're not caught up in the supernatural. They're not waiting for something beyond life. They're trying to figure out things right here and now. They see something a little bit differently, and they usually get to a point where they say, God, I've had it. I got to change my life. I'm at wit's end for whatever reason. That's the calling. It's a certain kind of personality and a certain kind of experience. It's nothing more magical than that. It's you getting to the point where you say, I'm done. I'm done looking outward. I got to turn inward and find something. You just answered the calling right there. That's you. Preparations are needed. This is where the training would come in the stories. And this is just things we'll look at as we move along. But it's basically things like you're going to have to drop your ego. You're going to have to kind of build some sort of mental character constructs before we go look at the pain, the molestation, the rape, the murder, all the different hateful things, the alcohol, the drugs, maybe it's something benign. Maybe you're lucky in life and you just have to make amends for stealing something one time or something very simple and you're going to be good to go. But there's other people that are just really, this is a pathway to ascend in the physical world, to go from bottom to out of it. This is a pathway. But it takes work. It is a very dedicated path that you must work at to go along. Anyway, entering the gate, yeah, you've got to leave. First of all, you leave whatever behind is that you're hung up on, and that could be something as benign as a belief. I believe something that I got to leave behind, or it could be I came from a place and a world and family and friends that I need to leave behind. It could be really extreme across the board. You decide how much you take this path. Entering into the subconscious, that's that narrow gate. That's you turning and going inside and saying, okay, I'm going to take a look at these things that I don't want to look at. You have to illuminate them. Then we're going to be replacing the healing part, the dealing with our demons or things like that. We're going to be replacing images with images. We're going to be looking at the things that we believe, determining why we believe them, separating ourselves from them, and determining a different belief about the way we feel about something, or at least to try and ease. Sometimes we can't believe anything different. If you've been very hurt and you believe you're a victim, change the victim status, rise up above that, you've left it behind. If you've had to deal with suicide in the family or something like that, you're not going to leave that behind. There's going to be different things that occur. What you're looking in cases like that is to try to find some kind of understanding and live with it. They're difficult things to live with. There's no magic in here that just, there's no emotional lobotomy in here. Begin to face your pain. Yeah, illuminate it, replace the person. Well, there we go. That's what happens. We're going to be working on ridding those things that we have decided upon in life that create who and what we are, that give us the life that we have, so that we can deconstruct that and then begin to have a different life emerge. And that is the pattern that I find within the monomyth pattern, that it is very specific and it's very interactive. And I have found that in those myths by doing a little bit different conversion. And we'll just leave that out. We'll leave that out. We'll just go right to the teaching, and it's going to make sense to you or not. If you're here listening to this, you're chosen. You're chosen because you've had it, and you're the person that's like, oh, yeah, there's something different. Congratulations. Preparations and all of that stuff. That's what this is right here. Meeting somebody to help you along the way. It's just finding information. Here's the deal. When you've had it and you want to make this path, we have the capacity as humans to somehow draw to us the things that we need. We like to draw to us things that we want while leaving barriers to those in place and ignoring those barriers. You know, the idea of meditate on what you want while you got a bundle full of pain in the past that you're trying to just ignore. You're going to have difficulty there. This process is not about wishful thinking or even imagining to the point that you feel it. That comes about at a point later. But our lives are already unfolding because of that very thing. Because unconsciously we have been experiencing the shame and the pain and the hurt. Yeah. This is not about trying to find a different way to think. It's about finding a way to understand where we come from and rise above that. And that this path right here is how we do that. Leaving certain things behind and looking at the things that are inside of us. And that is how I am going to be proceeding with this channel, is going through this right here. I'll bring in some other things too. I really wish the world knew that all of those stories were based on the same thing. But they won't. I would like for religious people around the world who are of the really extreme anger ilk to understand that what they have is the same thing as a myth. It's a spiritual teaching. It is a self-healing process. And treating it the way we do is, okay. So see, I need to stay on course here. We have to fix the individuals in a unit before the unit is okay. Anyway, so if that sounds good to you, that's how I'm going to proceed. In my own stage of understanding right now, I feel like I have a responsibility to just be the person that hands out those tools that I found. I think people want these, but obviously, and I've said it before, this is a path that's a very personal path. You do this or you don't. And years of my life, I look for ease, I look for comfort, I look for some way of changing my past, and it just didn't work. Even if I found temporary relief or respite in long time meditation and doing things, that it would help a little bit. But when I'm not paying attention, that other stuff is still there. And I saw that and I thought, there's got to be a way to dig that mass out. What is it? What is it? And that's what this is right here. There's a path that says if you have hurt and you watch it come and you watch it go, you try to accept it. You understand that it's a part of you. You're gradually changing the way you feel about something. And that, depending on who you are, depending on how severe it was, depending on what kind of effort you put to it, it might be something you can resolve in a period of time, and it may be something that never goes away. This process turns inward and says, we're going to go at it aggressively. Something happened to you and you believe something about it. We're going to change the way you believe about that. And we're going to bring in some different perspective to help you change the way you believe that. That's what this is going to entail. Going to that point of your pain and finding a way to make it that it's different. And that's exactly what this path is. Nothing more, nothing less. So how I will proceed next is, if you're here and you're interested, you're selected. The next path is to turn inward. We're going to start looking at, what I'm going to start doing then is trying to come up with exercises that help us develop this part of our mental concepts in our imagination. If you can close your eyes right now and imagine what you hide and see how it feels. And if it hurts, that's what we have to do, is develop a character that we can look at our pain in a way that we're perceiving it without the emotional attachment. The emotions are there. They're buried at a very deep, visceral level. But we need to develop a part of our mentality where we can look at that without feeling that visceral part. It's still there. But in order for us to deal with it, we have to be able to look at it objectively. And as long as we're wrapped up in it and crying our eyes out over it, we can't look at it objectively. We have to become a little bit different. We have to create a different part of us. That's what I'm going to be working on in the next series of videos. And I'm not sure how to do that. If you can already do that, if you can step outside of yourself. I still talk to my wife about this, and I realized that this has been a lifelong thing for me that I didn't realize was happening. But I can imagine a big 3-dimensional space all around me that I can suddenly pick up to, and like a robotic arm move around and look at things from here, look at there, look at the world, look at myself. And it's all happening up in your imagination. You're not really out there doing it. It's just looking at yourself from a point of view that you're detached from it. And anybody can do that. Practice that. If you can already do that already, work on that. Work on that. If you have hard pain inside and you know you want to go after it, but you know it's going to be difficult, this character right here, the detached person, that's incredibly important. Go ahead and work on that. And that's what I'm going to be working on the drills, is trying to get people there, because I've talked to people, and even people in my life, I'm asking them now, okay, can you do this? Can you do that? And they're like, some can say, yeah, I kind of do that, but not quite like you do. No, that's extreme. One person said they can see other planets. How far can you go? Yeah, you can go that way. But then there's others that say, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't get there. And that's a step right there we have to take. We have to get the people that have been chosen, that can't get outside their heads, the capacity to first get outside their heads so we can go in and look at those very hurtful things. If you're ahead of the class, go do it. Pain, shame, you don't want to talk, that's the barrier. That's what you got to break down. The only way through it, open up. Open up about it, not in a way that says, wah, wah, look what happened to me, my life, oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. You can't be there. It has to be, okay, here's where I came from. This is what happened. Why did it happen? Where does it come from? I'm in a lineage. You have to look at it objectively, not as a victim, but as somebody who has stepped out from it, trying to figure it out. That's where we're headed. Love one another. I'll see you next video.